Greetings! I am Fire Lotus, and welcome back to another live Witches Chat. So, a couple of things we're going to talk about today. For one, hi, hello. I am Fire Lotus. If you did not know, I've been doing these for about 4 years, 3 years now, 3 to 4 years. I've been a practitioner for 18 years. Not that I'm an expert in any way, shape, or form. I started these on my Facebook, and then I swapped over at the beginning of this year to YouTube because I have way more freedom. So, with that being said, I did want to remind everybody that I do have a Discord. Just click the link tree on my profile, and it'll take you straight to it. I also have 2 Instagrams and a podcast with a new episode recently. And obviously, you know my YouTube page because you're here. So, with that being stated, we're going to talk about a couple of things because I stitched a video and then actually kind of misspread some information, but we're also going to talk about traditional witchcraft. Hello! So there is this conversation going around online about why people call themselves traditional witches and or traditional witchcraft. Now, the funny thing is, the person who originally started the question, they should have already known what that meant. And what I mean by this is traditional witchcraft. Did I take? Yes, I did. I took all the books that I needed to explain this away. So from my understanding, the word traditional witchcraft, for one, it does not actually mean like this tradition that has not been broke that dates back hundreds of thousands of years. That doesn't really what it means. And it's also, there's 2 different types. There's European traditional witchcraft, and then what we know here in the Western world as traditional witchcraft. What that specifically meant, and the reason that term was kind of created, was it was supposed to separate a practitioner from being grouped in with paganism and or pagans and or Wicca. Now, with that being said, one of the aspects of the traditional part of that is if you actually look into the history of it, which I found it fucking phenomenal because I did not know this. If you know anybody who practices fairy magic or fae magic, and that's the one where they use, I think it's the 6 or 7 or 8 point star. They actually helped with that. It was like 3 to 4 people that came together and kind of created what we know now as traditional witchcraft and or the crooked path, which is where I learned most of this and then did research outside of that book. One of the reasons they say traditional is also if you look at some of the tools used in a traditional witchcraft's practice, some of those are traditional as in practitioners in the UK, Ireland, and Scotland have also used those, aka the best example would be the Stag. Grand Rising and the Stag, if you hear of that, it is a stick. I actually have one that I found on my property, but it is a stick that basically goes straight up and then it splits perfectly in the middle. Some practitioners would actually put a candle in the middle of that, and it also represents the stag. Now, what's interesting with that is it can also represent the feminine aspect due to the V. But a lot of people hear traditional witchcraft and they're like, oh, you're one of those. No, we're not people that think that, our practice dates back 150,000 years ago. No, but traditional witchcraft is actually really cool. Another difference that they use in traditional witchcraft versus Wicca or most, I'm not going to say most pagans, but witchcraft practices, is traditionally we were always taught to form a circle because that circle creates a bubble, as above, so below. And it also is for protection, but the main purpose of a circle is not necessarily for protection if you're using it in a ritualistic way. What I mean by that is the reason you create a circle is because it creates a bubble from top and below you. The point of that is to raise energy, and then when you release the circle, imagine a bomb going off and just spewing energy everywhere. That's the point of that. In traditional witchcraft, they have what is known as throwing the compass. So instead of it actually being a circle, it is basically, it's 3, I don't even know what shape to call that. Technically, it's a crossroad. So instead of actually closing off the circle, we'll say directional wise, north, south, east, and west, there are sections that are completely cut out. That way energy can flow through and Void, which does make sense, especially like if you use crossroads in your practice. That's basically the same term. It's not closed off. Now, a lot of people are not going to understand that and or disagree with that, and that's perfectly fine. Everybody does their practice differently. Now, I do use a circle, but not in the stance that most people would do. And as soon as I get a tripod, I'm going to actually make YouTube content with me being outside, actually doing the throwing the compass. And if I would have thought about this before I started this live, I could have easily actually. Oh no! Oh, yay! I do have it. Hello. There we go. So, laying a ritual, traditional. Let's see. I know there's a picture in here. Is that the only picture? Yes, it is. Okay, so The Crooked Path, again, an amazing book. That right there is throwing the compass. So see, there are 3 circles, but that part, this part, and that part are just blank. So they're left open, so you're not actually fully in a circle. And I love it because he explains the reason I love this book so much is because it is extremely very well thought out. As in, he compares in multiple different examples of the actual difference between Wicca, pagan, and traditional witchcraft, aka the Crooked Path. Now, with that, I made another video where I mentioned the Witch Father and the Witch Mother. And a lot of people, one particular comment was like, that's a Hollywood themed thing. No, the Witch Father and the Witch Mother are archetypes of aspects of the feminine and masculine energies that you find out in nature. But like I've said previously before, you're gonna have to do the work. Just like land spirits. When I move onto a property, or even if I'm visiting a property, before I do any type of magical workings, I will straight up introduce myself. What do I mean by that? I will legit go to a certain spot, depending on how I feel, and I will straight up introduce myself. Hi, I am Fire Lotus. I am a magical practitioner. I'm not going to change the land dramatically, but I would like to, work on it. And land spirits are different than, say, working with your spirit guides, your ancestors, or even a deity. Although they do kind of go hand in hand with deities. What I mean by that are land spirits are not the spirit as in they were a human and now they're dead. It's not that. Land spirits are almost like, I guess you could say, elementals, right? So with that, there will be some land spirits that want absolutely nothing to do with you. And then there will be other land spirits. You have to build that communication and that relationship with them. And if you're not working with land spirits, I encourage you to kind of start. Again, do all the precautions. If you get a bad feeling, if you get a weird feeling, don't do it. Because land spirits, they can be tricksters. Straight up can be tricksters. Now, with that being said, I also wanted to express this. If you live in America, aka anywhere where natives have lived, be very weary with burning dragon's blood. Dragon's blood incense can be extremely harsh to native spirits. So if you were to do that, and I do not know if this is part of a closed practice, I haven't really heard anybody say it, but sweetgrass. I would burn something sweet, if not sweetgrass. Rabbit tobacco, I believe that's what it's called. It's a plant that grows mostly all over the place in the United States. I know in the South it is. And it is a very, very, once you dry it out, it has a very, very sweet, earthy aroma. So I wanted to say that because I'd never heard of that before, and then I looked into it, and I've heard multiple other sources also state that dragon's blood can be extremely harsh to native spirits. And prime example where I live, for one, there is a, I think it's a phone number or a website you can go to where you can actually type in where you live to see what types of natives were around there. But I live in front of a lake, a natural spring-fed lake, which means it has been around for hundreds of years. I'm assuming hundreds of years. Anyways, what I'm trying to say is I know for a fact this land does have native presidents on it. Do not automatically mean Loki. Look up elementals, fire, water, earth, and land spirits. Hey, sweetie. Look up elements, fire, water, earth, and land spirits. Oh. I will look into that. But the reason that I stated that is because, for one, if we know most ancient cultures and natives, almost any culture really, they're going to live around water, because with a fresh water source, you have food, you have fresh drinking water, and then you also have water to do the agricultural things. Um, but with that, there was one property that I lived in with my grandmother, and there were two areas of that property I would not go because it just had its own little ore there, and I just did not like it at all. But yeah, working with your land spirits can be extremely potent. And a lot of times I get the question, well, what happens if I'm living in the city? There are so many spirits in the city, it's not even funny. And they're diverse. What I mean by they're diverse is they're going to be different energies. And then I got, okay, what happens if I live in an apartment complex? You're still going to be able to practice there and work with your land spirits. I know a couple of practitioners who actually do live in apartment complexes. So if they were to walk outside and start doing their ritual, they're going to get a lot of stares. So here's a little trick that you can do. And I've also talked about this with gathering dirt from special locations and bringing it back and tapping into that energy biolocation wise and still being able to harness that. Once you start talking to the land spirits where your apartment is, if they're okay with it, gather some of that dirt. Don't put it in a jar. Put it in a pot to where it's not covered, and bring it inside. That way, if you would like to give an offering to them, you could do it that way, or you could just put it on your altar. So when you do start to practice, bring that aspect, bring that jar of dirt or the pot of dirt into your circle, and you would be able to connect and commune with your land spirits that way. A lot of people are going to ask, okay, well, how do I do that? It depends on how you receive spirit information. You could use a deck of tarot cards. You could use a pendulum jar or a ring tied to a string that's suspended in a jar. Pendulums do not actually have to be crystals and stuff like that. It can be literally anything. Anything that can wrap around a string, it can be a pendulum. But do yes and no questions. If you're advanced and you've used them before and you know the extra precautions, spirit boards would also be something that could be played in. Or not played in, but used. I have one. It's literally hanging up right here. My partner made it for me. I don't really use it. It's more for decoration, I guess you would say. So the elements are spirits whose purpose is to protect all living creatures who resides in our realms, acting as our guardians from evil. Oh! See, I looked at elementals differently, but thank you for that. Another thing that I wanted to talk about, and this is going to be a perfect example of like the whole mundane versus if somebody's actually fucking with me. And before I say this, shout out to Witch Bomb for actually showing a lot of people how to do this. And since I learned it, it's one of my go-to things to do. So yesterday, me and my partner, because it was raining and stuff, he didn't go to work. So, we went into town to get our supplies that we normally get. And we have these like dollar lighters. Most people would call them like crack lighters, these. We had 4 of them. I had 2 on me, he had 2 on him. We had just used them as we were getting in the car. And I know I'd used mine when I hit my bowl before we left. And all of a sudden, my ear has been bothering me yesterday. It was bothering me. It wasn't hurting. It was kind of like slightly like burning / itching. And superstition-wise, that basically means somebody's talking about you. So we go, and he asked me to light him a cigarette, so I went to light it, and the flint popped out of it. We just used this lighter. I go to flick it, and boom, flicked out. So I grabbed the one in my pocket that I had also used. Did the exact same thing. And I'm like, wait, what are the odds of 2 lighters that were working perfectly fine before automatically just going boom? So when we got back, I started this thing where at nighttime normally, I'll get this random call, as in a thought will pop into my head, yo, grab your deck. So I grab my deck. And this particular deck, because I'm still kind of refreshing myself with Tarot, is these right here, the major arcanas. And these right here are the minor arcanas. So what Witch Bomb taught, if you think somebody has hexed you or anything like that, you do this, you separate the major ones, put the major ones aside, and you're going to shuffle them as much as you can. Then you're going to make 3 piles of 10 cards. But you stop in each pile when you get to an ace, you stop. 1 ace means somebody's talking shit behind your back. 2 aces means, in other words, you get an ace in this pile, you get another ace in that pile. It means that somebody has thrown something your way, but it did not actually fully stick. And then on the third pile, if you get 3 aces, that means that somebody legit threw something at you and it actually is still working. And I do this periodically just because I am slightly like, and I always like to know things. So I shuffled them for about 5 minutes straight because I kind of got distracted as I was shuffling them. And I did it, and lo and behold, somebody was talking about me behind my back. That's perfectly fine. I understand I have an online presence. But I made a video. I haven't posted it, but I learned something, and I realized something in that process. Who cares? When somebody talks about you, whether they hate you or they love you, they're still using your name, which means they're still giving you power. Now, I do believe I know who's kind of talking about me behind my back, but I don't care. And this can be really, really good. That technique can be really, really good because I'm not good at math. But if you were to break that down on the mathematical, like what are the odds of the aces in the deck coming up? It's kind of cool. You can also do this with playing cards. You use the aces as the aces. But it's one of the quickest, surefire ways because that's the most popular question I get is how do I know if I've been hexed or something like that? Besides that, egg cleansings all the way. And if you don't know what that is, you basically get an egg. It can be bought from the store. It could be a fresh egg. And you start from here and you rub it all the way down your body, all your arms and your legs, your toes, all the way back up. And the point of this, and when you're doing it, is to basically ask the egg to extract the negative energy. Now, with that being said, it doesn't actually take it away, but depending on how it looks is depending on what you'll do. And then after that, you'll get a jar and or a bowl, primarily a jar like a mason jar, something that doesn't really have a design on it. Bubbers, what are you doing? Come on. And then you crack it and you let it sit there for like 5 minutes, 5 or 10 minutes to let everything kind of balance out. And then you basically translate it and or read it. Now, a lot of the times you're going to get bubbles. Bubbles at the top primarily mean that you have somebody in your life that's kind of shining the evil eye on you. What I mean by that is that they don't want you to succeed. They would rather you fail or stay where you're at versus hiring up or going up the ladder. And then after that, on TikTok, I've seen people actually use the remaining of that to actually like add, kind of just send back to a rescinder thing. I don't really do that. If that happens, depending on the reading, I will then walk outside and the tree that I use in my practice, I will, kind of dig up a little hole, a little bitty cubby, and then say something like, return this back into the earth. And then, because I see energy, negative energy, you can send it back into the earth so it can kind of like reimburse it and kind of filter it out to where it no longer becomes negative anymore. And that's what I do with the remaining of the eggs. And then I'll either do a cleansing bath, or just, honestly, there are a lot of times where I've cleansed myself just using Florida water. And what I'll do by that is just anoint me. You can also make a mixture of Florida water and just a little bit of water and spray it on you, and boom, that works perfectly. But traditional witchcraft, I know I'm all over the place. That's normally my lives. Traditional witchcraft, though, doesn't mean it's actual traditional. Now, another question also got brought up, and due to the fact of how I look, I decided it would rather be not to actually mention it or talk about it, which is hoodoo a closed practice if you are white? Traditional hoodoo, yes. The hoodoo that we see here, which is also stemmed from and helped create Southern Conjure, Root Workers, not really. And what I mean by that is the definition of closed practices that people are using is either A, it has to be in your blood, like an ancestral thing or a cultural thing, and or you have to be initiated in. Hoodoo here in America falls under the terms of a folk practice. No folk practice can theoretically be closed due to the history of how that practice was created. It's the same thing with Creole voodoo. There are so many people online that's like, no, voodoo is closed. Traditional voodoo, yes. But if you were to go to New Orleans and ask a voodoo practitioner down there who practices Creole voodoo, they would say, no, you do have to be initiated into it, But no, it's not. And that is the biggest problem that we are having in the witchy community. Somebody or a content creator makes a video and says, this is closed, and that's closed, without actually doing historical research. I interviewed Bloody Mary in New Orleans, born and raised there. She's Creole. And I asked her that. I was like, is it closed? How do you feel about that? And then she explained that Creole voodoo, there's a reason I'm saying Creole voodoo. But Creole voodoo that was created in, or the type that they practice in New Orleans, the reason it's not really closed, as you do have to be initiated in, but it was a mixing pot, just like the Appalachians. If you look at the actual history of how Appalachian folk magic was created and most other folk practices, you will realize that multiple different sources came together and they shared tidbits of their own practices and immersed them into one. Appalachian folk magic has a bit of Dutch, has a bit of German. I almost said Russian. I don't think Russian. German, French, African slave magic. Multiple different things were mixed together to formulate what we know now as Appalachian folk magic. And even in Appalachia, they do not consider it magic. They consider it a way of life. They consider it living. And that's the biggest issue, is people will take a TikTok at face value and run with it without actually doing historical research. Jake Richards' book, he explains it in the very first chapters of his book of like, look, there is a mixture of all different things. Even in this thick-ass book, New World Witchery, he also explains it in there. It's a mixture of cultural things that all of these cultures came together and willingly did. In New Orleans, due to the fact that it was a port city, so you had hundreds of thousands of ships from all across the world coming in. That's where some of the spices and herbs that they use in Creole voodoo came from. It came from India. And this is not talked about enough because, yes, I understand the importance of not actually copying and or practicing something that is fully closed. But the way that they're pushing that is you're not even supposed to be reading on it, and that in itself is stupid. Knowledge is for everybody. You can easily research and read about a practice if it is closed, just so you would be knowledgeable with that, and it also helps stop the spread of misinformation. I stitched a video, a big talk that's been going around, shit, for the past 2 or 3 years now, white sage. With the whole natives. And it's confusing though, because if you look at some of those videos, you have a huge portion of Native Americans saying no, or natives saying no, this is only for us because we use it in our practice, which again, 100% understandable. Then on the other side, you also have other natives saying, well, no, this is for everyone. Thus where the confusion comes from. Now, I personally do not use blue sage. I use culinary sage. I buy it from the grocery store, or I use sage that has already been ground up. That, again, culinary sage. I call it culinary sage. But there are so many different types of sages that you can use. There's pineapple sage. There's wild sage that has growing in my yard. So many different types that you can use that is not actual white sage. I mean, there's an argument right now in the ayahuasca community because a lot of people believe that it's supposed to be for only the people that come from there. When in reality, if you actually talk to most shamans, they believe that that knowledge is here on the earth for everyone, not just for those specific people. And the only reason I know this is I have a book that it does not teach you how to practice shamanism, but it teaches you the core principles of what shamans believe. It's got a lot of great exercises in there as well. And this is the issue with people they want instant results. They want instant satisfaction, and it doesn't work that way. Magic in itself doesn't even work that way. We've been having a discussion in the Discord about, like, this person had been doing a spell and it just didn't work. And they're like, what, am I doing something wrong? Like, I don't understand. And I was like, no. I've done spells when I was 16, 17, and 18, and they didn't manifest until now. And I'll be 29 this year. Magic does not have a guaranteed date of when it's going to come into your life, and people need to realize that. Um, but at the same time, it also, which is what I told them, I was like, you may need to reword it. It may be what you're trying to manifest right now is just not in the cards, but it doesn't mean that you failed. The biggest thing that you can do in your craft to damage you or somebody else is to plant self-doubt. That's going to lead into the next discussion. What is self-hexing? Because a lot of people know about it, but they're not talking about it. Self-hexing is when, say, you accidentally break something on your altar, or you have a couple of things that happen to everybody that's slightly considered bad luck. And then, especially if you have ADHD and or anxiety disorders, you'll understand what I'm about to say. If I were to automatically think that I have bad luck or I've been cursed or hexed, when in reality I haven't, or even jinxed, what your brain is going to do is it's going to associate everything after that one thought that you consider bad luck with that hex. Therefore, it's going to create a snowball effect. So in reality, nobody has thrown anything your way. You just had a oh shit moment, and now your brain is going to associate every single thing that goes wrong with that curse. So it's going to get worse and worse and worse. In reality, nobody hexed you or cursed you. You did it. I've hexed myself more times than anybody physical person has ever tried to hex me. And I honestly, when it comes to online content, I believe a lot of people are just doing it for the views. Because like I said, I've been practicing now for 18 years, and I've never really had to deal with somebody trying to hex me or anything like that. Have there been people attempting it? Yes, but it did not succeed and or work. With that being said, does that mean I'm all powerful? Fuck no. Nobody is all great, knowing, and powerful. It just doesn't work that way. Um, but yeah, I think that's going to be it for today. It's going to be a little short one. I've got a couple things to do. For one, I've got to eat, and then I've got 2 spells to do, and then I've got 2 readings to do. So yeah, I've got to get on that. Interesting fact, if you have or if you want to watch something very cool and interesting, I know this is random. 2 stories. It's on the CW. The CW app is free, by the way. Um, but they just started their episodes again, and the first 2 are actually really good. Um, but yeah, now with that being said, I do want to end this. If you haven't already, you still have chance to talk to me or get up with me about the honey jar or honey pot services that I will be doing. The cutoff date to that is the 31st. And then it will be made on in bulk and technically the second new moon of this year. And then it'll be fed after every after that, it will be fed on every full moon, new moon, or any other astrological event that I can tap into and pull from. And then it will be going on the altar with all the other honey pots and honey jars. And then for the month of February, I'm going to be doing a self-love community candle, which will be burned on every full moon, new moon, basically until it's completely burned down. And that's completely free to the community. The honey pot is $5 per entry. What was the other one? Oh, and then for the month of February, I will be running, not really a special, but I'll be doing 2 types of love magic. One of them is if you are single and you're trying to manifest the next chapter, that's what it's going to do. It's not making somebody fall in love with you. That's not the magic that I do. But it will help line other things up for that next chapter, the next person you're supposed to be with, to come into your life. Excuse me. And then the second one is going to be for people that are married or have been in a long-term relationship. I've done this with me and my partner multiple times because any relationship, the sparks and fire slightly dies down to embers. Embers. There we go. So with that being said, I have a spell that's called Respark the Spark, and basically that's what it does. It kind of sets that mood to where everything keeps flowing and you kind of remember of why and the reasons y'all fell in love. And I've done it for multiple other people. I've done it for one person, and it's we got a turf war with fucking sorry, Sandhill Cranes. Normally we have 2, and 2 other ones just flew up. But I done it for one person and it fixed their marriage. It fixed a 14-year marriage. So it definitely works. Um, and if you were to do this spell or come to me for that specific one, I encourage people to a few days after that to actually set up a romantic date night. That doesn't mean you have to go out in town, stuff like that. Whatever that is in your relationship. Um, I mean, for me and my partner, that's getting a pizza or cooking tacos because I'm obsessed with tacos. Eating a nerd rope and then sitting down and we've been watching some of the older Disney movies. And that's a date night for us. Um, what are y'all staring at? I'm so sorry, y'all. I know I'm distracting as hell, but like there are four sandhill cranes outside of my yard and they're all looking in that direction and I'm like there's nothing over there. um but yeah, with that, I also wanted to press this, the Discord. If you are on Discord, totally join our Discord, Lotus Hollow. We were talking about it today actually in the Discord. There are so many different practitioners of all different paths in there, from all different, from like beginners to people who have been practicing longer than I, and we're all just trying to figure shit out. um and what I mean by that is we've had so many questions being asked. I've asked questions. We ask each other for advice. There's a book reading thing where you can talk about the books you're reading, your book list. There's an 18 plus section that goes on sex magic and other adult things. Um, we have a general one, an introduction one. We have a TikTok one, so you can share TikToks and stuff like that. We have a hobby one to where you can talk about your hobbies and stuff like it's just amazing, honestly. The community is just mind blowing and amazing. Um, so yeah, I think that's gonna be it though, because I've got to eat. And then I've got to start prepping for the spells and stuff. But yeah. Oh, update. If you've been keeping up with me, I did get the package that I was sent. I don't know if I'm gonna do an unboxing on it because some of the things are like personal, but it got delivered, but to the wrong mailbox. Come to find out, the neighbors directly next door to us who have the goats, it was actually in theirs, and they delivered it to me. So I successfully got the package, thank God. But you know, Mercury retrograde, it's fucking with everybody a little bit. But yeah, until then, I will talk to y'all later. And remember, if y'all have any questions or anything like that, you feel free to email me. Um, firelotusthewitch@gmail.com. You can hit me up on Instagram. I would say TikTok, but TikTok has this thing, unless you're mutuals, you only get to exchange 3 messages. Facebook page, all my pricing and reviews are on there as well. And hopefully later on this year, I'm starting to look in trying to make merch and also actually create a website. That way I'm not using Facebook for the booking thing. But yeah, until then, I hope you're all going to have a great Tuesday. Today's Tuesday, right? Wednesday. Holy shit, I missed the day. Okay. I hope y'all all have a great Wednesday. And yeah, until then, I'll talk to y'all later. Peace.